Okay. All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to start off by giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS, better known as Great Millstone, who taught me this 144% truth. And as always, would like to give peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect that be like the speckled bird, all right, scattered across the four corners of the earth. And to the Akim that's pushing this truth and sincerity, risking your lives and freedom to do so, more so now than ever. All right. To you, I say Shalom. And the title of this lesson is going to be Revelation chapter 20, uh, the breakdown. And the reason why I wanted to do this because the Spirit led me to hop on this topic based off a live that I've done yesterday on TikTok, going a little bit into the secular history, dealing with the Moors, going back to the medieval period, or better known as the Dark Ages, and also dealing with the Edomites, the Idumeans, and their history coming up in the Renaissance period. And prior to me speaking on that topic, I noticed that there was a lot of people that were very interested that didn't know the history or that had been lied to or been manipulated to think one thing that happened when in actual fact it didn't happen. So hence the reason why I wanted to come up on here and do this topic. So now what I want to do is I'm going to just share my screen. We're just going to get right into it. All right. So just bear with me. And let me just check on my other channel to make sure that that's come up. All right. Beautiful. All right. So let's get started. So this is Revelations chapter 20 and verse 1. All right. And it reads, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand." Now, the angel, all right, that is talking about here is a representation of a man by the name of, who goes by the name of Septimius Severus, which secular history teaches us that he was the first so-called African Roman emperor, all right, that took down the ancient Roman system. Now, he wasn't actually African, all right, he was an Israelite, okay, and we're going to get that, all right, but it says here, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven," which that angel again represents Septimius Severus, all right, right around the time of circa 193 AD, all right, for those of you who want to look that up. And it says having the key of the bottomless pit. Now, the key of the bottomless pit represents Europe today because prior to Septimius Severus taking down the ancient Roman system, all of this took place within Europe. All right. And it says here, "in a great chain in his hand." Now, the chain represents slavery. All right. So here I have a little article by history.co.uk called Sky History. And as you can see here, up here at the subtitle, it reads Severus, Rome's first African emperor. All right. And it says here in about AD 193, Lucius Septimius Severus was named ruler of the Roman Empire, and during so became Rome's first African emperor. After emerging victorious from a period of civil war, Severus expanded the border of the empire. New heights ushered in a period of imperial transformation and founded a dynasty. All right. So right off the bat, this is going into on how basically the start of our rulership during Europe, all right, which was known as the medieval time, Middle Ages, or the Dark Ages. All right. This is where it started. All right. So going back, let's read that again. Verse 1, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven," which we know that to be Septimius Severus, "having the key of the bottomless pit," which the bottomless pit once again represents Europe because this is where it took place, "and a great chain in his hand," putting all the Idumeans who came from the ancient Roman Empire, or I should say, who were the Romans. They were put under slavery. And to prove that the Idumeans were Romans, right? There's a book called the Roman Empire, by William Beasley. Yep, that's the book right there. So let's see here. Here you can see this is a paperback edition, Salakia, of a book called The Roman Empire, The Empire of the Edomite by William Beasley. And as you can see, this paperback is roughly about $16.31. And AU Australia said that would be equivalent to almost about 25 bucks, I think, or 30 bucks. One of you brothers can check that out on your own time. But this is a very good book, and it gives you a lot of insight about who the Romans really were. They were the Idumeans, which the word Idumean is Greek for Edom, all right? Proving what we're talking about here, right? So this man here, all right, subdued the Edomites, all right, brought down their rulership, okay? And it goes into verse 2. It says, and he laid hold on the dragon, which the dragon represents the ancient Roman Empire, that old serpent, all right, going back to the garden, because that same serpent, all right, came back in the nation of Edom, all right. Esau, Edom is known as the wicked, pertaining to Malachi chapter 1 and verse 4, which is the devil and Satan, all right. Why is he called Satan? Well, let's get a precept. Let's go to the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, okay. And we'll start at verse 8. It says, and then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Now, we're consuming the wicked, which is the Edomite, through the spirit of his mouth, which represents us, the prophets, okay? Because we're out here prophesying the downfall of Esau, Edom's rulership, and also the destruction of Babylon the Great, which is America. And it says, and shall destroy the brightness of his coming. That's talking about when our Lord Yahweh Shah HaMashiach comes back to take down this rulership and all the other heathen nations. Verse 9, here's the point. It says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan. You see that? His coming, that even him, the wicked, being the Edomite, all right, he's doing all of his works after the working of Satan. And this is the reason why a lot of people, not to digress, they get caught up with spiritual Satan versus the spiritual physical counterpart of Satan here on the planet Earth. All right. So this is actually talking about a particular man who we know that to be Esau, Edom, whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Right. Verse 10, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. Now we're going to come back to 2 Thessalonians, but let's go back, turn our attentions back to Revelation, the 20th chapter, and let's read it again. It says, and he laid hold on the dragon, okay, Septimius Severus, bringing down that ancient Roman Empire, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, which we know that to be the Edomites, and bound him 1,000 years. Now, we have to look this up because we always say when you go into secular history, the medieval period, or better known as the Dark Ages, really did last for 1,000 years. And to prove that, when you go and look up Dark Ages, you have to be very careful, all right? Because they'll tell you up here, says the migration period was a historical period, sometimes called the Dark Ages, late antiquity, or early Middle Ages. It says the period lasted from the fall of Rome to about the year 1000. Salakia, give me a second real quick. Right. And it says with a brief hiatus during the flowering of the Carolingian court established by Charlemagne. Right. Now they have here date 500 to 1000. Right. And when you look up how long did the Dark Ages last? All right. Now they put here 900 years. You see that? It says the Dark Ages were between the 5th and the 14th centuries, which is correct, lasting 900 years. The timeline falls between the fall of Roman Empire, which is the Edomite, going back to here, right? Esau, Edom, proving that he was ruling. Okay. Salakia, let me go back Where was I? Slovakia, forgive me. Right. It says the timeline falls between the fall of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. Okay, Renaissance means rebirth. It has been called the Dark Ages because many suggest that this period saw little scientific and cultural advancement, which is bullshit. All right, um, because we developed so many things. We were eating good. We were cooking food with fire. We were, you know, uh, showing people how to pretty much live, how to take care of ourselves. We were bathing ourselves. All right. We had science, we had art, we had all of that stuff. All right. So we did have a cultural advancement. And to prove that, I have a site here. All right. Showing you during the medieval, which are known as the icons, right? That we were ruling. Okay. And as you can see, this is a few Russian icons. But here, when you drop down, all right, there's Septimius Severus right there. This picture here is part of the medieval art, proving that we were ruling during that time. Here's some more of the artwork here. All right, that you can see. You see the throne, the actual helmet and everything, right? This is this person here. This is what you will call a Moor, all right, the Moorish, okay, because they wore the crowns, they were they were actually Israelites, but they were worshiping other false deities such as Islam. They were into being Muslims and so forth, you know, stuff like that. All right. Here's another the ancient arms of Ashford, which again goes back to the Moors, showing you once again that we were ruling, all right, during the Dark Ages. Okay. And then, you know, it goes on and on. You guys can look up this stuff on yourselves, right? All right. Here's the keys. Here's another depiction of that right here. Here's another more. Okay, right here. All right. And one of my favorites, Saint Maurice, all right, showing you that we were ruling. And the statue of the Blackamoor holding a Habsburg coat of the arms. Okay. So when you travel over there to Europe, all right, you go to parts where we were ruling, you're going to see statues like this. Okay. But not to digress, what ended up happening was the reason why this history is not taught is because when the Edomites came back in, which we're going to get in Revelation, the 20th chapter. All right. Well, you know what? Let me leave that off because I don't want to jump ahead too far. So just going back to the point. Now, they tell you here that it was 900 years, right? That's false because when you go and look up the term medieval period, what does it tell you? It tells you the medieval era, often called the Middle Ages or Dark Ages, began around 476 AD. Following a great loss of power through Europe by the Roman emperor, the Middle Ages span roughly 1,000 years, ending between 1400 to 1450. You see that? This is the truth, which matches up with Revelations 20 and 2. All right. So we shut the so-called white man, which is the Idumean, 1,000 years. And this was during the time of the medieval period, which you can see here. It actually lasted 1,000 years. But what Esau did was he calls himself being slick and he put 900 years. So you won't be able to actually cross-reference the truth. All right. But we got the 100% truth, starting with the apostles. All right. Elders, bishop, and teachers alike from the men of Great Millstone, better known as GMS. All right. Shalom to those Akim again. Now, going back to Revelation 20 and verse 3, it says, and cast them into the bottomless pit. So during this time, during 1,000 years period, what we ended up doing was we ended up pushing them back into the Caucasus Mountains, right? Because when you get, let's get another precept. All right. Let's get Job chapter 30. All right. And verse 5, because Job spoke on it, right? It says, they were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief. Okay. Because what happened was, as a continuation in verse 6, it says, to dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in the caves of the earth, and in the rocks. This is where you get the Caucasian man from. This is where you get the notion of them living in the Caucasus Mountains, because here I have a picture here. Let me see if I blew it up right here. This is the image of what they will call the wild man. All right. And during the time when Jake was ruling in the medieval times, we actually pushed them into the Caucasus Mountains. They were known as the Wild Man, right? Or Bestial Man. All right, here's Jake right here, the knights, all right, the medieval knights. And we were pushing, all right, them into the actual caves, right? Now, when you go and look up, just to prove a point real quick, right? Spelled that wrong. Lock you. So when you look up, all right, where it talks about the Caucasus Mountains and caves, all you have to do is see, okay? And bam, right here. See if I can blow that up. Beautiful. Look at that. Call Halayim Le Yahweh Shem Yahushai, right? The caveman, all right, are the children of Edom. All right. Now, they will call them Neanderthal man, but this is your true Neanderthal man right here. Okay. Going back to Job chapter 30, let's read it again. It says, they were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief. So they were howling like dogs. Okay. This is when we took them down. All right. Because we ended up pushing them back into these cave mountains. All right. Cave dweller. All right. And this is beautiful because look, it has the precept which we're reading. Job chapter 30. All right. And this is the actual, this is the Edomite, the so-called white man. This is his true heritage right here. Right. So going back. All right. Let's read that again. It says, and cast them into the bottomless pit. So that's during the time when we pushed them back into the Caucasus Mountains. All right. And shut him up. Okay. Because when we shut him up, it says, and set a seal upon him. Why? Because when we shut him up and we pushed him outside of society, all right, he lost his power. Okay. He couldn't do anything. Right. He lost his power. And there was a time where they didn't have the ability to talk. They didn't have the ability to speak. There's an actual good movie, if you guys want to look up, it's called Quest of Fire, right? Just show you guys a certain image, and there it is right there. Esau, Edom, the Idumean. You see that? And if you guys haven't watched this movie, watch this movie because this gives a complete breakdown to what Job, all right, breaks down, all right, on how the Edomites were, okay? So this depiction here in this movie, Quest of Fire, I highly recommend you guys watch this movie because it'll show you how they were living before they came back into power, which is what we're going to grab back in Revelations, right? So let's go back to Revelations. Okay, let's read verse 3 again. And cast him into the bottomless pit, being in Europe, and shut him up and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. Because remember, going back once again, right? We ruled for 1,000 years. Okay, Salakia, right? So he was going to be sent away, shut up, all right, living in the wilderness in those Caucasus Mountains until the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And we're in that little season right now. Okay. So before we continue on, because the rest of this time frame actually jumps down to verse 7. Okay. Now, when you get to verse 4, all right, it jumps to the future. Okay. So you have to be careful when you read this. All right. Because it jumps everywhere. Verse 4 says, and I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. Okay. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach and for the word of the Most High, whose name is Yahweh, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Hamashiach for 1,000 years. Now, when it says, and I saw the thrones and they that sat upon them, this is talking about the apostles, because remember, Yahushua, let's get a precept real quick, said in the book of Matthew, the 19th chapter, to Apostle Peter, when Peter asks, what shall we get with all these things, right? The disciples' reward, right? Khan, it says Matthew chapter 19, verse 27, then answered Peter and said unto him, behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Yahushua said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye shall also sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. You see that? So going back, okay, this is a twofold scripture because, all right, John the Revelator is expounded upon that how he saw the apostles sitting on the thrones. And then it goes on to say, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua, because back then, 2,000 years ago, all of the apostles ended up dying, right? For the exception of John the Revelator, because he wasn't beheaded. He obviously will sit on the Isle of Patmos. But the other apostles, if you look them up, they all were, majority of them, not all, Salakia, but majority of them were beheaded. They were put to death for this truth. And also other faithful men outside of the apostles also were put to death for this truth. Another great precept is the book of 2 Maccabees chapter 7, when it goes into the account of the mother with the 7 sons, all right, how they put their lives on the line for this truth, right? So it goes on to say, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of the Most High, because you have to understand, even right now, the day that we're living in the year 2020, which is the hastening of our Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, you're going to have, when Jacob's trouble pops off, you're going to have some of the elect men that's going to be beheaded in these times, okay? All right, they're going to be beheaded in these times, right? And it says, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, because the apostles during day, they're back here today. All right. That's why the scripture says the spirit is subject to the prophets. All right. So the prophets are back here today, but they're not going to be worshiping this system. So they're not going to take the MOTB, which is the chip. All right. They're not going to take that. All right. And the image represents the ancient Roman Empire system, to its laws, its architecture, its way of life. A good precept to that is First Maccabees, the 3rd chapter, right around, I believe, somewhere around the 13th verse on down. All right, you can read that for yourselves. And it says, neither have received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Hamashiach 1,000 years. Okay, because remember, that first 1,000 years, we're going to be ruling over the heathen nations. All right. Remember, we always talk about the tabernacle of David. If you guys understand the tabernacle of David, go and read 2 Samuel, the 8th chapter, or 1 Chronicles, the 18th chapter. And it tells you how when David was set up, okay, he basically subdued all the heathen. All right. And this is why, not to digress, to go off topic, but this is the reason why a lot of Christianity, when you bring up the phrase, do you understand the tabernacle of David? They seem to shy away, or they get upset, and then they call us false prophets, because they don't even understand building up the ruins of the tabernacle of David. And when you understand the tabernacle of David, you understand that David had all the heathen nations under subjection. Okay. And this is part of what we're going to have. All right, in our kingdom. Okay. Verse 5, it says, but the rest of the dead live not again until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. So during the 1,000-year period, all the heathens are going to serve us. But when the 1,000 years have expired, like when it's up, what's going to happen is we're going to send all the heathen nations back into their lands, for the exception of the Edomites, because pertaining to Obadiah 1, all right, that whole chapter is fire. Go and read it. But Obadiah 1:18 says that Esau is going to be a stubble to the house of Israel. We're going to be likened unto a fire, which means we're going to do away with all the Edomites. All right. That's biblically scriptural. Okay. So it's going to come a point that when Edom gets done serving their 1,000 years of slavery, we're going to gather all of them up, and we're going to utterly obliterate them from off the face of the earth. Okay. Now, the first resurrection is dealing with the elect of Israel, as well as the 2/3, because the 2/3 are going to come back through the 1/3 in the kingdom. Hence, Revelation chapter 11, verse 26, all Israel shall be saved, right? So that's what it's going into. Verse 6, it says, blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. Why? Because the elect are going to be found written in the book, right? Let's grab real quick Malachi chapter 4, real quick. Salakia, not Malachi, Micah. Salakia, forgive me. All right, Micah chapter 4, verse 8. It says, "And thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion. The kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem." That's starting with the elect. Okay, because we're going to get first dibs. Let's also grab Isaiah the 14th chapter to prove that we're going to have that. Isaiah 14:1, it says, "For the Lord Yahweh will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land." Okay. And the strangers, okay, which represents the Israelite foreigners, all right, shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. All right. Because going back to Hosea chapter 1, all right, and verse 10, all right, Israel, even though Israel be as the sand of the sea, yet a remnant shall return. Okay. And this is speaking of that remnant because both northern kingdom and southern kingdom are going to be joined back together under one nation. All right. And Yahweh Shah is going to sit on that throne. You're going to have King David. All right. And then under King David, you're going to have the 12 apostles. Then after the 12 apostles, you're going to have the 144,000. Okay. 12,000 out of each tribe, which represents the body governor. And then you're going to have the rest of the 130 elect, which is the men, women, and children. All right. Who the Lord will have mercy on. Right. So going back, verse 6, it says, "Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection, on such the second death." The second death is talking about that thermonuclear destruction that's coming, World War III. All right. "Have no power, but they shall be priests of the Most High and of Hamashiach, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. All right. Now we're going to jump to verse 7, which we left off from verse 3, going into about how the Edomites were shut down and we pushed them back into the Caucasus Mountains. All right, for 1,000 years. Now it goes on to say, "And when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison." All right. And this is that time that we're living in. All right. Because the Edomites have come back. All right. During what's called the Renaissance era. Okay. Now, when you look up that word Renaissance, which let's do that real quick. Let's go to our etymology online dictionary real quick. Let's look up Renaissance, right? So you guys can understand. All right. Now it says here, all right, Renaissance, the root etymology, it says right here, literally rebirth. You see that? Renaissance means rebirth. And what does it mean, rebirth from what? Because remember, I showed you a book that Edom, okay, was part of the ancient Roman Empire. So this is during a time when they came down from the Caucasus Mountains, right? Which I have a picture here. All right. Now, this right here is what you call a tapestry. And this is a representation of the Holy Roman Empire, which is you Jakes, okay, which were Israelites, all right, but you were known as Moors back then, and other names, various other names that you went about being called. As you can see here, if you have a look at the castle, all right, and you see the images, they're all so-called black, right? But who are they fighting off that's coming down from the Caucasus Mountains, all right? The Edomites, aka the wild man, all right, the red man, okay? Remember Genesis 25, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau, all right? And this is the history that they cover up that they don't show you, okay? Now it says here on the right-hand side, plate 15, "The wild man in the Moorish tapestry, of which part is shown, is typical of other 14th and 15th century allegorical pieces woven in the South Germany. The armorials in the lower border are those of Zorn von Balak or Zorn von Plashim, Bluem, which were all powerful Strasbourg families at that time." And going back, remember I talked about the Strasbourg family. This is one of them, proving that we were ruling in the Dark Ages. You see that? You see how it goes hand in hand. So now what happened was Satan being loosed out of the season, you had the Idumeans, they were coming out of the Caucasus Mountains, and that seal that we set upon them, going back in Revelations the 20th chapter, verse 3, that seal have been lifted. All right, because the Most High had to fulfill prophecy. So, the Edomites, they had to come back, you know, into power. And this is how they came back into power. This is how they got control over Europe, by taking us down. All right. So going back, Revelations 20:7, let's read it again. It says, and when 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, meaning coming out of the Caucasus Mountains, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth. Okay. And by them deceiving the earth, when you understand the Renaissance period, they had things such as iconoclasm, which they went around and started destroying our images, our statues. All right, started whitewashing history. They started breaking in their pseudoscience. Okay, and then you had a family by the name of the Borgia family who came into power. All right, they took over the church. They took over the politics. All right, and then it just all went downhill from there. All right, and the so-called white man has been in power since the Renaissance era, which means rebirth coming back to that ancient Roman Empire, which has been revived through America today. All right, that eighth little horn when you get Daniel the second chapter. But in that same verse, in verse 8, it says Gog and Magog, which today represents Russia, because remember, Esau Edom, he went around the four corners of the earth conquering. All right. And the so-called white man has the part of Gog and Magog over there in the land today. So we know that to be Russia, to gather them together to battle. Why? Because in the last days, which we're living in now, and this is another reason why you're seeing in the news with Russia, Ukraine roaring up against NATO. All right. The Most High is mustering the battle, this final battle, which when you get Joel, the third chapter, and also I believe, what is it, Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8, wait ye upon me. All right, for my determination is to gather the nations. Okay, this is that final war, World War III, which the Bible declares as being Armageddon. Okay, it says the number of whom is as the sand of the sea, because they're going to come down. All right, when it talks about, let's grab that, Revelation chapter 12. Okay, because they're going to try to subdue all of the Israelites. This is why it's called Jacob's trouble. All right, Revelation 12:12. It says, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil, all right, which that word devil in the Greek is diabolos, which just means false accuser, or metaphorically speaking of a man who opposes the Most High. Okay, we know that to be the Edomites, Malachi 1:4, who is the wicked. All right, it says the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time. And this is the reason why when you get Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 7, that's going into where it says, at last, for that day is great. It is no, let me just get it because I don't want to butcher it, Salakia. But let's just go ahead and grab it real quick. All right, Jeremiah chapter 30 and 7, it says, at last, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. All right. And that he shall be saved out of it is starting with the elect, because it's only the elect is going to make it. Okay. So moving on, verse 9, it says, and they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about and the beloved city, and fire came down from the Most High out of heaven and devoured them. Okay. Because this is talking about the nuclear destruction, because when those missiles pop off, starting from Russia and then also from the beast, where it talks about, and the beast shall hate the whore, because you're going to have part of the nations of NATO, all right, mainly Britain and all of them, they're going to turn their back on America, Babylon and Great, and they're going to shoot their missiles also on America, all right? And you have to take into account the angels and Yahweh Shai. When you get Second Esdras, the 13th chapter, it breaks down on how Yahweh Shai, as well with the angels, they're going to be shooting those laser beams out of those chariots. All right. Shalom, brother. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai Barakatah. All right. So the fire that's going to come down from heaven, all right, is talking about the missiles, because Yahweh's spirit, all right, is going to be in those missiles. All right. And then also going once again, the chariots, all right, they're going to be zapping people, turning them into dust and everything. Okay. So man, it's going to be on. All right. Verse 10, it says, and the devil that deceived them, okay, Esau, Edom, was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone. All right, because this is Esau's judgment. Okay, remember, Second Esdras 6:9 says what? Esau is the end of the world, meaning the end of an age, but Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. All right. It says where the beast and the false prophet. Now, the beast represents the EU and NATO, and a false prophet represents the Catholic Church. Why? Because when the church was started, okay, and you can get that in Wisdom of Solomon, the 14th chapter, preferably starting about the 15th verse on down. Okay, all of your religions came from the Catholic Church. All right, they also had a part and plan with the creation of the Islamic faith. Your Baptists, evangelists, Orthodox, all of that came out of the Catholic Church. That's why it's known as the false prophet, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever. That's talking about the thermonuclear destruction. All right. Verse 11. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. All right. Because remember, Isaiah 47, all right, it talks about how the daughter of Chaldeans, the daughter of Babylon, virgin daughter of Babylon, come and sit in the dust. The dust represents confusion. All right, because Esau, Edom, this is his rulership. This is his heaven. All right, which heaven is symbolic for rulership. All right, but he's going to be knocked off his rulership, right? And the obviously the great white throne is a representation of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, because Yahushua will be sitting on the throne. All right, which once again, David is going to be under him, as well as the 12 apostles sitting on the 12 thrones. And then you're going to have the 144 body governor, all right, as well as the rest of the 1/3, the men, women, and children who the Lord will have mercy on, who come out of those 12 tribes of Israel. It's not talking about all the other heathen nations, right? Verse 12, it says, and I saw the dead, small and great, stand before the Most High, and the books were open, and another book was open, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books according to their works. Okay, because remember, let's grab a quick precept real quick. Let's go to Second Esdras. All right. And chapter 9, real quick. All right. And verse 7. And it reads, and everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby ye have believed shall be preserved from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land and within my borders, for I have sanctified them for me from the beginning. All right. So the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, all right, they have already preordained the elect. We just don't know who they are on the planet Earth, because part of the elect is here on the earth, but you also have part of the elect that's in the heavens. They're in the spiritual realm. They're dead. All right. They passed away, but they're waiting. All right. In the spiritual realm. All right. So it's going to be a glorious day when you know, he raises us up. He sends his angels to gather the elect from the four corners of the earth. That's in Matthew, the 24th chapter. And then where it talks about how we're going to be gathered up and caught up with them in the heavens, that's the rest of the elect. Okay. And it's going to be a beautiful time. All right. It's going to be beautiful when that day comes. Verse 13, it goes on to say, back in Revelations, the 20th chapter, and the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and the death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works, proving in this scripture alone, all right, which is one of many scriptures, that there is no such thing as hell where your spirit goes and burns up, because how can death and hell be delivered up to be judged, right? It's talking about the condition, all right, because hell is just a grave, okay? That's all hell is. And the Most High, Yahweh, is both, all right, through us, and he's also in the grave. Okay, Job spoke about that. All right. So going on, it says, and death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. You see that? So how can there be a such thing as hell, where the Christian church teaches you that, you know, if you sin, you did this, you're going to die and go to hell? No, it's talking about the grave. That's the true hell. Hell is a condition, as it tells you in the book of Ecclesiastes. Let's grab that real quick. Salakia, forgive me, losing my voice. All right. Let's see here. Um, no, I think it's Salakia, chapter 1. Salakia, forgive me. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 16, to prove a point. It says, and moreover, I saw under the sun. Okay, now what's under the sun? The earth, the place of judgment. That's the key phrase, place of judgment. Okay, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. Because if you're going to preach a so-called doctrine such as hell, where your spirit is sent for to burn up in all eternity, that will be a place of judgment, right? Well, why is it saying here in Ecclesiastes 3 and 16 that you have where, all right, he saw under the sun the place of judgment? Because the judgment, the actual hell, is here on earth, because hell is a condition. All right, that's why it says in the same book of Ecclesiastes, all right, verse 12, Salakia chapter 12, verse 7, then shall the dust return to the earth, which the dust represents you, okay, the human body, because we were made from the dust, okay, as it was, and the spirit shall return to the Most High who gave it. All right, so your spirit goes back to the Heavenly Father. When you die, your spirit doesn't go to a place called hell. You see that? So going back, Revelation chapter 20, verse 14, it says, and the death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Once again, the second death represents the thermonuclear destruction, which is World War III. Okay, America, which is Babylon the Great, is going to be destroyed, right? And it says here, and whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So if you're not a part of the elect, all right, that's pretty much your ass. Okay, this is why it says in the book of Daniel, chapter 12, right? Verse 1, it says, and at that time shall Michael stand up. Now, what time is this going into? That's talking about the time of Jacob's trouble. It says, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in a book. That's starting with the elect. All right. So that pretty much concludes this lesson. All right, for Revelations, the 20th chapter. And I sincerely hope you brothers and sisters have been edified. All right. And as I said, you know, that's a little bit of history going into that. All right. And you know, if you have any questions, just leave it on the comment board. All right. If there's any other topics you want me to cover, just let me know. And Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, if the spirit permits me, I could be able to go into those breakdowns. So that's it for me. Yahweh Ratazah, you guys were edified. All right. On to the next time. Shalom.